Former Cibola soccer coach Cameron Clarke is lucky to be alive. Back in 2016, he did something reckless that could have left his family without a husband and a father. Fortunately, the incident wasn't tragic, and he sat down and talked with us about the injury, his recovery, and his future plans.
It was July 8th, 2016, so a little over 2 years now. Right. And I was selling some t-shirts for my neighbor at Milne Stadium, and we were just getting off about 4 weeks of triple-digit weather here. It was really hot. Went home, found out that AC broke in our house. We already had friends over. We had a pool set up, above ground pool that we've set up for our kids. And it was later evening. I set the pool up in my backyard for a specific reason. Number one is to get the sun, and two, where my roof was, something I've always been known for, just kind of doing risky things. And I set the pool up there, realized it was late at night, looked around, no kids were around, because that was one request my wife said, like, don't do it in front of the kids. So it was my opportunity. Did a few jumps, figured out I could kind of dive into it. Last dive, I always tell everybody, was the fourth dive, you know, the Olympics, you know, the final dive, grand finale, and it really was the grand finale. Backed up a little bit further, jumped a little higher, kind of pushing the envelope, and that was the one that caught me. I remember going in, planing out, and as I was planing out, next thing I know, my hands are in my face, and you know, I'm not sure if I hit the wall or the corner piece of the bottom of the pool, and started doing the dead man float, and all those memories of playing dead as a kid all kind of came back, and you know, people were around, and I just realized, like, crap, I hope they know I'm not playing around. I thought it was kind of like a stinger when you get one of those where you hit your head or your body kind of gets jolted. It just needs to take a moment for the body to wake back up, like it wasn't good. And it wasn't waking back up. Had a friend hoist me up to the top of the pool. Sat there, told them again, I was like, just give me a sec, I think I just need to. And couldn't move my legs, and that was really worrisome. My wife's out there, Jody, and she goes, well, you know, are you okay? And I was like, I don't think so. And I said, about 30 seconds later, I was like, I think we need to call 911. And she's like, why? I was like, I can't move my legs. And there were ripples in the water, and they're like, well, your legs are moving. It's like, I don't think that's me. So from there, I remember fire department paramedics coming in, and they did an excellent job, got me out. And next thing you know, I'm in a ambulance on my way to UNMH. It was kind of a long night. Just remember lots of lights, lots of doctors around trying to take care of me. And I woke up the next morning about 8:30 saying I was going in for surgery. I had broken my neck, and they needed to perform surgery right away. And next day I woke up in a hospital bed and found out I was paralyzed from the neck down. Started realizing who all had found out in family, and it was just a roller coaster from there.
Specifically, what was the injury? What did you break?
I broke my C5 vertebrae. It was a fracture on both ends. Luckily, it wasn't shattered, but it did affect C4 through C6. So they fused my vertebrae from C4 through C6, and there's people that break their backs, break their necks, but mine is classified as a spinal cord injury, so therefore my spinal cord had swollen up, and when it presses against the walls, that's where you get the paralysis, versus somebody else that might break their neck and they never see paralysis. They actually were fortunate enough that they didn't bruise, basically, the spinal cord.
So that first night, first week in the hospital, I mean, what's going through your head?
I remember waking up the next day and asking Jody if somebody got a hold of my neighbor to let him know I wasn't going to be at work that next day. I remember getting a call from my AD and you know, asking how I was doing, and knowing that that morning I woke woke up, I believe, was open fields for soccer. So I was asking if somebody could get out there. I was more concerned because I know I didn't want to think about what happened with taking care of everything else that needed to be taken care of. We had already had an open field that Thursday, and this was the end of the weekend. And yeah, more concerned with who was going to take care of all the kids and all the other responsibilities I had.
Was there ever a doubt that crept into your head initially while you're in the hospital there that this could be permanent?
Absolutely. I'm not sure if it was the third or fourth day. Somebody came in and they rubbed their finger on the bottom of my foot, and my foot started moving. And I was like, sweet, I want to walk. And they're like, no, that's an involuntary movement. And I was like, no, it just moved. They're like, try to move it on your own. Couldn't move it. And so for the 2 weeks I was at UNMH, my biceps were active, so I could pull my hand to my face, but my fingers wouldn't move, so my hands were cupped. And I remember I could get my hand up to my face, but then I couldn't get it back down, so gravity had to take over. But yeah, it was pretty dire situation, and I do remember that when my kids got to come visit me, that was the hardest part, because that was when I realized I probably wasn't going to be able to hold them, pick them up, or feel them anymore. So.
And how old were they at that time?
That was 6, 4, and 2. So, well, about 1.5, my daughter. So.
What was your wife like during that time? I mean, how was she reacting to this whole thing?
She never let me see it. She was amazing. She pretty much never left my side, slept in the room, stayed in the room all day. Got chewed out by the nurses because apparently the bathrooms are meant just for patients, and I'm sitting there kind of looking around like I'm in my I can't get to that I don't know why. But there were some amazing nurses there that really helped us out and kind of went against the grain. And I remember Jody left the hospital one time to go home and take a shower, and that was before we left. So.
At what point do you realize they're going to take you out of state because you went up to Colorado, correct?
Yeah.
For a facility?
Right. I went up to Clarke Rehab Hospital in Denver. That was the 2 weeks at UNMH seemed like forever looking back on it, because I remember finding out about Clarke Rehab. The doctor that performed my surgery, Dr. Patterson, he had done a fellowship up there, and he said right away, that's where I need to go. If I want to ever have a chance at getting any better, I need to get to Clarke Hospital. So we put in the request to the insurance, and insurance originally said no, they wanted me to stay in town locally and go to the rehab here at Health South. So I remember we were fighting tooth and nail to try to get out to Craig, just because we've heard nothing but good things about it. We were told that we were going to have a representative from Craig come and interview me to see if I was a good candidate or not. And that was the last I heard from them. And I remember we made signs. My brother went and bought me a tie and suspenders, and I was in a collar the whole time, so I knew. So we did a bow tie. And I remember when the lady came, I was decked out. We had compression socks on your legs, and I remember we decorated them, said Craig or bust. She walked in, she was laughing because she said, the fact I showed up means we want you. And I was like, you kidding? You know, I had a whole speech planned out, you know, I was getting ready to be interviewed, and that was kind of a relief, knowing that we're getting up to Craig. And so, you know,
How difficult of an adjustment was that? You mentioned the clothes and stuff. I mean, you're at a point, I mean, you can't even dress yourself, you know, let alone get up and walk and hold your kids and that sort of stuff. How big of an adjustment was that to the everyday life kinds of things?
It wasn't just dressing. I couldn't breathe on my own. When you're on your back, you know, when you wake up some mornings and you're congested, you cough. I couldn't cough. I couldn't cough on my own. people had to come and press on my chest pretty hard to push stuff out while I tried to cough. It was called a quad cough. It's kind of a scary situation. You know, everything's compromised. I couldn't feed myself. Completely dependent on everybody. Going from I would consider myself pretty independent to completely dependent was a really, really hard adjustment. And I think being a coach and an athlete, you're really stubborn. So not willing to ask for it and learning to have to deal with it that was a pretty surreal moment.
How long were you up in Colorado for? How long was that process?
I was up there for about 2.5 months, and that process that was interesting. You know, they specialize in spinal cord injuries and traumatic brain injuries, and the minute you get up there, they go from hospital care here, which is we don't want to hurt you any further, so we take tons of extra precautions, to out there they're like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to help you figure out how to get home and make a life of it. And that, to me, that was kind of a big challenge, and that was something I needed. I need those types of things, you know, like there's hope. We're not guaranteeing it. And one of their big sayings is prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And that was kind of one of those things in the back of your mind. You're always preparing for the worst, but you know, me, I was going for the best.
So you get home, and I mean, your whole world is turned upside down, but now you're out of the friendly confines of a hospital or rehab facility. You're dealing with real life. What sort of real life adjustments did you have to make?
That was tough. I remember the first day I was left home alone, because I was released from the hospital in October, mid-October. I think it was about October 16th. And we got home, and I think I was home for 2 or 3 days with my wife at home before she had to go back to work. And that first day being home alone was a little daunting. I was in my wheelchair still. I could ambulate, basically walk, maybe 10 minutes at a time. And so standing was really, it was a tough situation. And I remember I had to make myself a sandwich. And we were talking about it the other day. It was an hour and a half to make the sandwich, followed by 4 hours of sitting on the couch trying to get my energy back. It was that there was kind of one of those, again, like, I hope it gets better.
Slowly but surely, you're starting to get your strength back up, stand up when you can, walk a little bit with some help. At what point do you make the decision to go back to the soccer field, go back to your team?
I think it was a couple weeks after that. You know, I knew if I was in a chair, somebody could push me, and I just knew I didn't want to be home by myself. Being by yourself, having something like that to think about a lot, it's not something I would really recommend to anybody. You know, being in a hospital, somebody was always around. I was always around somebody, except for the nights. But that was, so I knew I wanted to get out. My brother had taken over the soccer team, so you know, I knew there was always an open invitation to get out there. And I just remember being able to get out to that first practice and seeing the kids. I do believe I went to a game before that, and it was kind of something that kind of helps makes things feel better. You never knew what it was going to be like. I remember just sitting in a chair going like, I don't know how I'm going to do this if I want to get back to this, which was the ultimate goal. I don't know how it's going to work from a chair, but you know, that's what we got to do. That's what we're going to have to do.
And what sort of reaction did you get, and what did it do for you mentally?
Mentally, it was good. It was an amazing reaction. I think we played Clovis. I remember rolling out to the APS fields, and I think I told my brother I was coming, and he ran over the fence and wheeled me in during warm-ups, and it took, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes for everybody else in the stadium to realize that I was getting wheeled across, and it was a good feeling. It was a really good feeling. Lots of clapping. You know, that was one thing I do remember in the hospital here, is just watching the community come together, and there was a lot of attention for something I felt I didn't really want the attention, but it was good. It always felt good. And
then you eventually came back and you coached. You
Yeah.
took over the reins of the team again. Are you starting to feel more like yourself? More a little bit back to normal?
You know, I'm not sure if it was really the best idea to come back. You know, I felt like I could handle it, but there's a lot that goes into coaching. Any coach can tell you. You know, it's not just getting out and going to practice and going to games and getting to enjoy that part. I felt like I dealt with it fairly well. It was a lot harder. My coaching style is a lot of demonstrating and being able to perform what I'm asking for, and not being able to do that. That's been a large learning curve of mine, having to explain a little bit more.
So did that have something to do with why you chose to step away now?
Stepping away was more of a decision for my family, and to coach takes a lot of physical endurance from myself, and so coming home, I had no energy left. It was kind of rough, you know. My wife has already put up with enough, and she doesn't need anything else on her plate. So, stepping away, I think, was a family decision, and being able to be around my kids a little bit more and help them out.
Now you're going to be speaking in front of coaches, not only soccer coaches, but various coaches. What's your message to them? What do you want them to take away?
I'm still wrestling with that, you know. Hopefully it'll come to me when I'm sitting there talking to them. But I think one of the things that coaches, I think across the board, and being able to work with coaches daily at work, we always talk about athletics brings something to the table other than just going out and competing. You know, we see kids these days having to deal with a lot of stressful situations. You know, social media's made life a lot more difficult on kids these days, and I do feel like athletes have more skills to help cope with that just through athletics, and I feel like those same types of skills and coping mechanisms that I learned being an athlete helped me a little bit with this situation. You know, years of coaching, I've had athletes who just made some really bad choices, and I don't ever define them by those choices. You know, you fall on your face, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and mope about it, or you're going to pick yourself back up and you know, try to dust yourself off and keep on moving. And you know, that was always in the back of my mind. I can't sit here and mope if I'm always sitting there telling everybody else, you know, you got to pick yourself back up and dust yourself off. And so it was kind of all the little coaching mannerisms and the talks I've had with my athletes. I'm sitting there having to have those same talks with myself. And so just, I guess, kind of reassure these coaches, it really does make a difference, you know.
So is this a situation you look back on now that you're a little bit more removed from, because you're walking around, you're you know, much better than you were, that you are embarrassed about, you regret, or do you look at it as everything happens for a reason, maybe this is my message, I'm meant to, you know, how do you look at this whole situation and what happened?
That's still wrestle with that, you know. 2 years removed, the big thing that they say about spinal cord injuries, the old adage was 2 years, that's it. Once you hit your 2-year mark, you know, you're not going to get any more return. You know, they say that it's, you know, that's a sliding scale, and I'm really determined to push that. But yeah, there's a lot of embarrassment, but you can either let that embarrassment kind of eat at you, or you can turn it into something a little bit more positive, and that's kind of my hope, that I can turn this into a positive situation for others. And really, just somebody that can go through life without making a bad decision, that's nearly impossible, you know. So it's, how do you deal with those bad decisions, and how do you turn them into something positive? And I'm still don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm hoping this is a good start.
Do your kids realize the severity of what went on with you?
Yes and no. I don't know if it's nervousness or if they haven't been able to ask. Nobody's ever asked me just flat out, all right, what happened, why'd you do it? But I've never not answered somebody's question. I've never just say I don't want to talk about it, you know. If somebody asks, I'll let them know. But at the same time, if they don't ask, I won't say anything either. Let's get through this together. But yeah, it's kind of a balancing act.
So what's next? how do you see your life 5 years from now, or
5 years from now?
2 years from now, or a year from now, 2 days from now?
Yeah.
What's next in your world?
Yeah, you know, I just kind of take every day as it comes. But really, my main goal now is how can I be there for my kids? How can I be there for my family? How are we going to learn to kind of continue with this? I don't see coaching as being over. I just need to take a break. I need to step away from it now. I don't know what it's going to look like when I decide to get back into it. All my kids play sports, so you know there's opportunities there to volunteer and kind of see if that's even an option ever again.
Yeah, from a practical and realistic standpoint, do you still have restrictions physically? I mean, are there things you still cannot do?
There are things I can't do. A lot of things that I can do are severely hampered in a sense that it takes a lot longer. Whatever I can do, it taxes me. So when I'm out and about, when I get home, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of me sitting on the couch just trying to recuperate. Best way I can explain it is anybody that's ever done any type of sport and when they're exhausted at the end and they need a weekend to recover, that's like any activity I do that's physical. Just going shopping and pushing around a shopping cart. You know, on certain days I have to cut it short. You know, I might have groceries, I have a list, I might get 2 items, have to go home. So, you know, there's those days, there's good and bad days, but yeah, physically it's a daunting task, but it's something I try not to let people see.
From a financial standpoint, how much did this hamper you guys?
I mean,
has it changed your world from that respect too?
Yeah, because so going back to teaching, I've only been teaching part-time, and I'll continue to teach part-time if that's even a possibility. Yeah, financially, you're not working, you know, so it does take a toll, but you know, it's something that I'm not the only person that this has ever happened to. You know, people find ways to cope and move on and live, and you know, I'm in that process right now, and so you know, nothing's set in stone yet. We haven't kind of hit that coast button and this is what life's going to be like. We're still kind of trying to figure things out as we go along.
Have you been back in a pool yet? And do you have any intention of ever going back into it?
The pool that it happened in has been set up for the last 2 summers because for me, it's kind of like one of those, like, I can look at it. If I can look at it, you know, that's kind of like my own personal thing, but it's more for my kids. I've been in a couple pools, and that actually is looking like that might be my best physical therapy. No weight, and so it's just a matter of getting my arms in and trying to learn how to swim. My problem is I used to be a swim coach, being a runner and being a soccer player. Everything that I know about body mechanics, I have to throw out the window and realize that's just how I look. But I struggle with it because if I don't feel like how I should feel, it's a little interesting. But yeah, pools, you know, I don't blame the pool. It was me, you know. I don't know if kind of I always tease people. I'm like, if I didn't want the pool, I might as well be cursing at gravity too, because that's what brought me down even harder than the pool. So.
And I'll finish this up with a way I finish up a lot of these one-on-one interviews. Is if they were writing a story or a book or a movie about your life and what happened to you and the journey you've been on so far, everything encompassing the entire your whole life, what would the title of that be? What would the title of your story be?
It was something in the hospital at UNMH. I don't know why it started to be a phrase I said a lot, but it was challenge accepted. Because everything seemed to be a challenge from the moment I woke up in that hospital bed to everything I do today is everything's a challenge. And it was even true before my injury. You know, life's going to throw you challenges. You know, how are you going to deal with it? You know, every challenge you're not going to come out on top. But, you know, if you're willing to accept it and willing to learn to fight through it, then that's going to do well for you, I believe, in the long run, you know. So it's kind of something I've adopted. When I was in the hospital and the community was rallying around, and my sister made a fundraiser, and it was for t-shirts, and it said challenge accepted. And it's Facebook. When I open up a Facebook page and people are taking pictures, I see a challenge accepted shirt probably 2 or 3 times a week, and it's just a constant reminder. So it's I would have to say that's probably my motto.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
If you like that story, be sure to like and subscribe. How do you like? Well, just hit the thumbs up button right below the screen here and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the stories that we're posting on nmact.org.